Welcome back to another exciting episode. I spilt my coffee. That's awesome. Today we're going to be working on a 10 by 40 table. This is made out of 5/4 poplar. So right now it's right at about 1.25 inches. So we're going to double that up. I'm going to show you how to laminate the edge so you can get a thicker material for your tabletop. So I buzzed through this section pretty quick because we've seen it all before. You get everything dimensional, you square everything up. You've seen me clamp 1,000 things, so let's just move on to the good stuff. And same thing here you've seen on the linked video, just marking my layout. Smile, frown, smile, frown, smile, frown. Excess glue, put a bunch of glue, make sure you glue the hell out of it. And to the trusty old clamp rack. Pow! And here we're going to cut up some aprons. Since I don't have my legs yet, I found out what size they were. If they're 5-inch legs, just kind of did a little quick math in my head to see how much. So when you build a table like this, you have to have a specific size leg. You can't be too long, and you'll see why towards the end. So I'm just cutting some 4-inch apron strips here, a little bit long. I'll trim them up when the time comes. I was on like a Blink 182 hit Monday, so I was kind of doing a lot of air drumming. Bang! Hit the cymbals. Wham! Okay, I'm going to try to break down how I lay these dominoes out. I always struggled with this, and this method has really helped me. Basically, I make a story stick. So right now I'm just laying my dominoes where I want them to be, where there's plenty of meat on the top, there's plenty of meat on the bottom. I'm just going to make a little indicator line on each one in the center. Now I'm going to take my story stick and write a T on one end. That's for top. That's the top of your apron. So line it up with the top. Now transfer those marks onto your story stick. So now that story stick will not only work for every single, be sure to mark top on your actual apron, you'll forget. So that story stick will work on every single apron, and then you can transfer that to the legs, which I will show you towards the end of the video. Just look at that technique. I always buy these little brushes in bulk off Amazon. When I make that mortise, I want that glue to just be completely inside that hole. And when I use the Domino XL, say it's 100 millimeter deep, I always, you want to go high. If it's 100 millimeter, you cut a 50 millimeter hole in each piece. I like to cut a 50 in one and a 55 in the other, just in case there's a little bit of sawdust or debris in there. Because when you're clamping up, the last thing you want is that domino to bottom out. So that's what I like to do. I know it's overall season. I pretty much live in bib overalls from this time until it gets warm again. But, exciting news, this build is sponsored by, drumroll please, Brunt Workwear. Brunt has been sending me these boots for, I've had them for about a year. Actually, beginning of summer they sent them, so not quite a year. I wear tie-up boots in the summer because I typically wear shorts. They reached out. I said, yeah, and I've had boot companies send me stuff before, and I never said much about them because I just hated them. I talk about these boots on Instagram probably once a week. I love them. I love them. I prepare for work. I prepare for good. So he reached out, said, hey, what size pants do you wear? These look freaking sweet. I am just tickled pink with Brunt. They've been so good to me, and I do not throw around brands very easily. I'm not your typical influencer, quote unquote. I just don't want to do it. Actually, fun fact, Boots reached out and wanted to do a partnership, a paid partnership, nearly $1,000 to wear their stuff. And I said, no, I have these Brunt boots. Brunt is unpaid. They do not pay me. But I said, I don't want to be the guy that just has 1,000 different brands that shouts them out every day. That just seems unauthentic to me. So I stay pretty true to my brands that are good to me. And Brunt, you are good to me, and I appreciate it. Woo, perfect timing. Alright, before that glue sets up, you just kind of want to scrape it off. Just makes your life a lot easier. This may be the next morning. I believe it is the next morning or afternoon. I don't really know. Same old story. We're going to sand them down to 0, make sure everything's nice and flat. Beautiful Tuesday morning. Beautiful. We got a good plan for today. This video is gonna be more about my lamination process and finishing. You guys have seen me build tables, several here on YouTube, many on Instagram. So you get the idea. Mill, sand, blah, blah, blah. So what I don't show is when I get down to the end. So I'm gonna take more time today filming my lamination process and making a 1.125" table up here to be 2 1/4. Wait, it's about 1.25". So when we laminate our edge, it's going to appear to be about 2 1/2. I've done this on several tables. I get a lot of question on wood movement. Essentially, it's the same exact thing as a tabletop. As long as you take your end grain and put it where the end grain goes, and your long grain where the long grain goes, it's the exact same thing. So either way, I'm going to try very hard to film as close as I can, and then do a voiceover. So without further ado, Tuesday morning, let's get to work. All right, establish your starting line. So all I'm doing right now is making a straight line all the way across one end, and then I'm going to measure across. This is a 10-foot table, so right now I'm going to put a mark at about 10 foot half inch for those keeping track at home. And take your track saw, whatever you use. And I don't know why I say this like you do it. I should be saying this is what I don't know. It's not really a tutorial. Maybe it is a tutorial. I don't know. Don't judge me. It's alright, so cut your end off. You're keeping this piece. Do not break it. This is 5/4, so it's not quite as brittle, but if you're using like a 4/4 top, then take your time and just don't thrash this thing around like a madman. So right now, I'm cutting 2 1/2 inch strips. When I measured out for my apron, it accounted for 2 inch ends. So I can't go any bigger than that, but I want a little bit of overhang for when I trim. So, cut it down to 2 inch. And, yeah, can't get ahead of myself. I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to be a spoiler. Don't spoil it. Alright, now that we got our 2 inch strip cuts, we're going to take these pieces along with some long 2 inch strips. Alright, so I cut 2 inch strips for the edges, and I cut those 2 inch strips for the ends. Now right now I am marking 1.75 inches off each end. So this is the piece we cut off. So we're going to cut 1.75 inches off of this. It doesn't make sense now, but it will, I promise. Remember to flip it. Don't just take it off both sides, because then your seams will not line up on the table. This saw's awesome, by the way. Buy one, you'll love it. Alright, flip your table over. Now it is upside down. Right now, the bottom is up. That's what upside down means. Go ahead and trim that starting line we made earlier. I kind of clean up all my edges. I just want to smooth it out. I'll make sure there's no debris on there, because that's essentially where you're gluing. Now you're taking your strips. Now you can mark it before you cut it. It makes it a lot easier. I forgot to do it. But find your orientation. Obviously, you're going to get it perfect on one end. If this was a clear coat table, I would have cut these strips off each end, but I did not, because I knew how dark it was going to be. So I'm just finding out where my grain is. And it almost looks like I go like in slow motion here, but I'm going to leave it in because I'm pretty gangster like that. Alright, look at it. So it's going to be flipped. This is where things get a little bit confusing. So this is how I want it to sit when it's glued up. So I'm just going to mark an A and an A. Now, the same 2-inch strips that we sanded to the same thickness, I'm just going to lay everything out and make sure everything fits on there. I have my proper overhangs, etc., etc. Everyone's following. So right now I flipped everything over. So essentially right now where I'm drawing, that's where the glue's going to go. This whole thing will be upside down. I want to reference flat off the bottom where the glue joint's going to be. So the domino will reference off this point here. Okay, same thing all the way around. Just mark them all and mark A, B, C, and D on each piece so you don't get mixed up. As you can see, I got clamps on my end grain there. Kind of keeps everything steady. Hit your domino into the long one because the short one's so brittle. The less you have to work with that, the better off you're going to be. And give it a little squeeze, not too much, because it's going to want to bow and it'll split. So just all you want to do is get that glue to connect. And little tip, get some scrap paper and put it underneath the tabletop, because it'll glue itself to it. So, and then when you pull it off, it'll break. Do a little toothbrush in here, get that glue out. All right, next day, it's dried. I'm taking out a clamp. Follow along. Same thing with your tabletop. Just make sure you sand this before you flip it over. Get a good glue surface. Again, this is 5/4. It's going to flip a lot easier than 4/4. 4/4, you almost have to clamp little strips on those ends to make sure they don't buckle. But this one had a lot of meat, so it was a lot more rigid than, say, a 1-inch or 3/4 inch piece. Now this, I've done this many ways. I've taken it all the way off. I've traced it and then put glue on, but I've found this is the best way. So get some air, blow everything out. You don't want any boogers in there. Get your ends lined up. This is a part that I've missed a few times too, so learn from me. Same thing, we're just blowing gook out from underneath it. And just lift up each end and put a bunch of glue in there. That way you don't have to carry this thing off. You don't have to worry about it breaking, because that's where things go wrong the more you handle it. I got good glue all the way around. I'm doing my ends first to make sure my seams line up. And then I go with my edges. Put yourself a little scrap under there, you'll see, so you don't have clamp marks. Grab every clamp you got and go to town. I'd love to have a vacuum bag to do this, but they're god-awful expensive, and I just haven't done it yet. Take your time, get an old chisel, scrape your glue, get a brush, get some water, and wipe this thing down now, because it's going to be a lot harder when it's dry. Hello. I was going to do the entire video in one shot, but I'm at 15 minutes. There's not a lot I want to cut out. So this is going to be part 1, and then I'll do a part 2. I've never done this, but I think it's necessary. So hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. Have a good day.